Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm David Bowles, and today we will discuss book number 7 in my fractional fiction series that concerns why the record is the reality. Civility Certified, a Dossier, Novella. I want to explain why I wrote it, how I wrote it, and what I hope it does to you when you read it. And it might be the most unsettling thing I've ever written. Not because anything violent happens, but because nothing violent needs to happen. The system works exactly as designed. That's the horror. Let me start with the question that started everything. What happens when access becomes a credential? Think about that for a moment. We live in an era of verification, background checks, credit scores, social media audits, reputation systems, wellness attestations, community standards enforcement. Each system promises safety, transparency, accountability. Each system creates a record, and each record outlives the moment that created it. We've built machines that remember everything and forgive nothing. We've created architectures of assessment that promise to protect us from each other. And somewhere along the way, we stopped asking what it feels like to be processed by such a system. That's what this novella tries to answer, not from the outside, not as critique or polemic, but from the inside, through the documents themselves. What does the form look like? What does the memo say? What does the system log record when you stand in the rain, waiting for the screen to resolve your fate? Civility Certified is told entirely through documents, memos, training brochures, system logs, tribunal transcripts, staff comfort notes, appointment confirmations, badge renders. There is no narrator standing outside the bureaucracy explaining what it means. There is only the bureaucracy speaking to itself, about itself, in its own voice. The reader becomes an analyst, reconstructing what happened to a man named Jonah from the paper trail he left behind. Jonah has done everything right. He has waited in lines, filled out forms, maintained his status. The system says his application is active. The door remains closed. This is a Dossier novella. You are reading a restricted integrity review packet, reconstructed from cached renders and system exports. You are holding evidence. The question is, evidence of what? For those unfamiliar with my fractional fiction methodology, let me explain what that means. Fractional fiction is a way of writing that synthesizes public domain source texts into new literary work. I take historical documents, texts whose copyrights have expired, and I use them as DNA, not quotation, not pastiche, synthesis. The source texts provide rhetorical patterns, structural logic, and thematic resonance. The resulting novel is entirely original, but it carries the genetic memory of its ancestors. For Civility Certified, I worked with 3 sources. The first is Martin Luther's 95 Theses from 1517. Luther posted his propositions to the church door at Wittenberg, demanding that the institution admit what it was doing, selling salvation, monetizing grace, creating a credential system for the afterlife. The structure of numbered propositions posted to the institutional door, demanding accountability. That form echoes throughout this novella. There is a character who writes theses. The institution does not welcome them. The second source is Jefferson Davis's address to the Confederate Congress in 1861. This gave me the rhetorical DNA of exclusion, dressed as protection. Davis spoke of voluntary participation, states' rights, procedural legitimacy, all while encoding slavery into the constitutional fabric of the Confederacy. The Civic Trust and Access Authority in my novella speaks in that register. It promises safety. It delivers sorting. The third source is Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin from 1925, specifically his theoretical writings on dialectical montage. Eisenstein believed that meaning emerges from the collision of images, that the audience assembles truth from fragments. This novella works the same way. You receive documents out of sequence. You reconstruct causation. You become complicit in the interpretation. 3 sources, 3 different centuries, 3 different forms of institutional power confronting individual resistance. And from their collision, a new story emerges, one that feels disturbingly contemporary. The Civic Trust and Access Authority is not a stand-in for any existing institution. I want to be clear about that. It is not Twitter. It is not the TSA. It is not your HR department. Though it might remind you of all 3, the CTAA is an extrapolation. It is what happens when safety becomes infrastructure, when protection becomes processing, when the desire to prevent harm hardens into a machine that cannot distinguish between a threat and a complaint, between harassment and insistence, between danger and inconvenience. The people who work for the CTAA believe they are doing good. That's important. This is not a story about villains. There are no villains. There are analysts following protocols. There are supervisors protecting their teams. There are partners applying standards as written. There are participants trying to maintain their status. Everyone is following the rules. The rules are the problem. Jonah is not a hero. He is not a rebel. He is not even particularly sympathetic at first. He is a man who believed that compliance would protect him. He filled out the forms. He completed the training modules. He passed the participation assessment. He received his badge. And then something happened. We're never quite sure what. And his status shifted. Not revoked, not denied, just complicated. Subject to review. Routed to alternate processing. Flagged for enhanced monitoring. The system still says active. The door still doesn't open. What I wanted to capture is the specific texture of that experience. The way institutional language can say, you are not being denied while denying you. The way status can remain technically valid while becoming practically useless. The gap between what the screen says and what the desk does. If you have ever been told, this is not a rejection, while being rejected, you will recognize Jonah's story. If you have ever waited for a system to resolve your humanity, you will understand why he starts writing theses of his own. Late in the novella, Jonah begins composing what the system calls unsanctioned communications. They are numbered propositions, echoes of Luther, posted not to a church door, but to whatever surfaces he can find. Staff break rooms, partner desks, the margins of his own intake forms. I won't quote them here. You should encounter them in context, in sequence, as the dossier reveals them. But I will tell you what they attempt to do. Jonah's theses are not arguments. They are not demands. They are observations. Precise, numbered observations about the gap between what the system claims and what the system does. They are the voice of someone who has stopped believing that compliance will save him, but who has not yet figured out what else to try. The institution's response to the theses is fascinating. They are not suppressed. They are not punished. They are processed. They become evidence. They are entered into the record, classified, and used to justify additional review. The system cannot be embarrassed. It can only be documented. I called this novella a bureaucratic horror story, and I want to explain what I mean by that. Horror, at its best, is not about monsters. It is about recognition. The moment when you see something familiar become strange, when the ordinary reveals itself as machinery, when you realize the call is coming from inside the house. The horror of Civility Certified is not dramatic. No one is tortured. No one disappears. No one is executed in a basement. The horror is that everything works exactly as designed. The horror is that the people operating the system believe they are doing good. The horror is that the participant does everything right and is still ground down by the gap between the status line and the door. There is a scene, I'll describe it without spoiling it, where Jonah arrives for an appointment and is told his window has been rescheduled. The new window is tomorrow. The reason given is credential verification pending. He has the credential. The verification is pending anyway. That's it. That's the scene. A man is told to come back tomorrow. And yet, when you read it in context, when you see the memo that authorized the reschedule, when you understand what pending means in CTAA terminology, it lands like a gut punch, because you recognize it, because you have lived it, because the system has done this to you, and you didn't even have language for what happened until now. That's horror, not gore. Recognition. Civility Certified. A Dossier. Novella is available now. You can purchase the Kindle ebook or the paperback through Amazon. If you prefer a free download, a beautifully formatted PDF is available on my website at bowlesbooks.com. The PDF has all fonts embedded and will render correctly on any device. This is the 7th book in the fractional fiction series. If you've read the others, The Dying Grove, The Inheritance, The Kinship of Strangers, The Held Land, The Corollary, The Somnambulist's Prophecy, you'll find this one different in form, but continuous in concern. All of these books ask what it means to be human in systems that prefer us legible. If this is your first fractional fiction book, welcome. You don't need to read them in order. Each one stands alone. Each one uses different sources. Each one asks a different question. This one asks what happens when access becomes a credential. I hope the answer disturbs you. I hope it stays with you. I hope when you next stand at a desk waiting for a screen to resolve your fate, you remember Jonah and his theses and the gap between the status line and the door. The record is the reality. The record is also a lie. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm David Bowles, wishing you a prime evening and a forgotten tomorrow. Be a human meme.